Has something changed within the last year?
So there was a giant human trafficking case in southern Georgia with H-2A workers who came into the country legally, forced to work at gunpoint, kept in tiny, squalid little shacks, not enough food, sexual assault in the workplace, extortion, and if you don't work fast enough, we're going to call your family, or we're going to call our buddies back in Mexico, and they're going to beat up your family. Because the H-2A program vets everybody, and they know exactly who they are and where they live. If you're undocumented, no one knows where you came from, and no one can threaten your family back home. you know? And so H-2A, because it's a heavily vetted legal program, actually opens up way more opportunities for crime. Isn't that interesting?
That is absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Never thought about that. That's
yeah.
wow. Yeah.
And it makes you ask, if you can come into this country legally the right way, and that's what happens to you, why would anyone bother? Really makes you wonder. So, because there's all this paperwork, a lot of farmers did not want to do the H-2A application themselves. And so they turned to basically temp agencies. They're called labor contractors. So the labor contractors will bring in a bunch of people, because you can only work for one company. You can only work for the company that brought you in on your H-2A visa. Well, if that company's a temp agency, then farmers can call you and say, send me 20 guys on Thursday, I'll need them for a week, and you can just move them around the state, right? Move them around the region. So that's how H-2A labor really wound up working. It's the labor contractors that really do most of the sketchy stuff, because they also just do most of the hiring, and like most of the housing. They're the ones who handle all of that stuff. So all of that, finding workers and moving them around and taking care of them, got offloaded from farms onto labor contractors. And something the labor contractors will do, in addition to just beating people and all that good stuff, they will also charge the farmers for housing, food, transportation, and also charge the workers for housing, food, and transportation. They will double dip, while not actually providing that much in terms of food and housing. So this human trafficking ring, as a result of double dipping and just grinding the heck out of workers, made $200 million from human trafficking in the United States in the 21st century.
So this isn't like small business. This is like massive, massive business. Wow.
Yeah, and these cases are incredibly hard to prosecute because, again, like even if you get a conviction in the U.S., they can still send their buddies to beat up your family in Mexico, and so no one wants to testify. And from time to time, farmers are even aware that this is going on. Like every once in a while, like they'll kind of participate. Most of the time they're like, I had no idea. But every once in a while, farmers will kind of tip their hand that they know this is going on. I actually did a food safety audit on a farm in southern Georgia that ran their own H-2A program because they're like, all the contractors around here are crooks. It's crazy. That was back in 2016, and then in 2021, because it took that many years to put the case together, but it was an open secret in the area for a long time. So when that's what's going on, so the Department of Labor, which runs the H-2A program, in 2024 said, okay, we're going to pass some anti-human trafficking regulations and laws on this program because there's too much of that going on here. The wage rates, keep pace with inflation. That had been going on for a while. But then they said things like, if you get caught human trafficking with the H-2A program, you don't get to hire H-2A workers anymore as a contractor or as a farmer. Seems obvious, right? There's some basic stuff like if you're transporting people down the road, they are not cargo, they are people. They need to be in a people vehicle with seatbelts. Like if you're just riding around the farm from one place to another in the back of a pickup truck, that's fine. But if you're going down state roads, and we actually had a worker killed here in North Carolina last year on the farm that belongs to a state senator. They had a guy it was down a state road. They had him on a semi-trailer standing between the cab and the trailer, flying down a state highway, and then he got kicked off and then run over. That's why we had that law in 2024 put into place, anti-human trafficking regulations, and like the people are not cargo, right? Trump rolled those all back in 2025 in June. That was a big part of the campaign promises he made to agriculture. And so if you've ever seen farmers acting like they're still very loyal to Trump, even though he screwed them, not as much as you think he did. He did a lot of things they like, quite a bit. So there's, Department of Labor supervision on the H-2A program has never been amazing. I mean, that's how you can wind up with a $200 million human trafficking ring in southern Georgia, not to mention whatever is going on in the rest of the country, active investigations underway. But yeah, and then we rolled it all back in 2025. And so that's something that the farm sector and the farm contracting sector, which is now a growing economic sector, they lobbied hard for that. So those anti-trafficking regulations have been repealed, and they know it, and maybe they're acting like it just a little bit.
Wow.
So.
I mean, first of all, thank you for that's like absolutely fascinating. You know, I feel like I'm almost like listening to like a college lecture on how like farm worker immigration works. It's like really insightful, and I actually think what's mind-blowing for me is like I'm kind of like I'm an apolitical person, right? I'm kind of just like not really that much paying attention. I kind of viewed it as like, okay, illegal immigration versus legal immigration. You know, before you explained this, I thought on agriculture it was more of a black and white issue that okay, we want more kind of legal and above board, less illegal. But I think the way you explained it, now I'm kind of like more confused of like, hey, this topic is way more nuanced, that you know, under these legal channels there's some problems that are much worse than under the undocumented channels. That's fascinating. Mm-hmm. I guess, you know, in thinking through that, I guess, would your general opinion just be that, you know, conditions for farm workers and related sanitation practices are reducing generally, you know, in like last couple of years, and you know, is that like, if you had to kind of guess, is that the main, you know, culprit? And I guess also maybe on a more positive side, how could that be better addressed?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, first things first, you know, the fact that people are basically told illegal versus illegal immigration, like, there's a reason they're telling everybody, no, it's just because we want to vet people. There's a reason they're not telling people it's because we want to traffic. Like, no one's going to volunteer that information, because then we wouldn't let them do it, right? There is one human trafficking ring can make $200 million, you know, like in one local little region, right? There is a huge amount of money in the slavery business. Always has been, right? And so there's a lot of people who just want it back. And, you know, I kind of like to call undocumented workers, I'm like, they're freelance, because they can come and they can go as they want. And that's the real problem a lot of people had with them, was they're a little bit too independent and free. We got to fix this freedom issue. It's a problem, you know? Like, historically in the U.S., undocumented workers have had a hard time getting out of bad working situations. I think that's gotten better because social media is there, because people know their rights a little bit more, because enough people have extended family in the United States that they have somewhere to go. I think that is helping power the farm sector's desire to switch to H-2A, because it is now at a point where migrant workers have enough power to get out of bad situations. And that's just a bummer if you're the bad situation. So, but yeah, like there is a huge industry of just bringing in new people to the United States who have no rights, basically, or can be told they have no rights and don't understand what's going on, and can be lied to very easily. That is an industry. And it's funny too, because we always talk about like it's the big quote unquote corporate farms that are doing it. Corporate farms don't really exist the way people think. 98-ish% of US farms are family farms, including most of the big ones. Most of the corporate farms are family farms. They're just big enough that they don't look like a Fisher Price family farm, and so we're like, that must be a corporation. Almost always they're not. That's a family farm, and the family just has shmoney. It's a huge industry. It's mostly private families doing this. It's not big corporations. It's a down home crime. Okay. I was doing food safety audits in an undisclosed location in the South at one point, and they were all using the same H-2A labor contractor that had been caught for some trafficking violations, right? And every single one of those it was small and medium family farms, and every single one of them said like, oh, this labor organization, because it had a name that sounds like a nonprofit. It's a for-profit company, but they marketed themselves well. Every single one of those small and medium-sized family farms said to me, they're just such a great local resource. You know, if it weren't for them, we couldn't do what we do. And, you know, it's just wonderful having them around, and they're such a great local service. And did you know they're an international human trafficking organization with multiple convictions?
Wow.
So that's the shape of what's really going on. It is a very down-home crime, and it always has been. All the big name, like, black abolitionists in U.S. history, Frederick Douglass came from a small family farm and escaped from it. Harriet Tubman escaped from a small family farm. Sojourner Truth escaped from a small family farm. It's always been a part of the fabric of, it's the part of the small farm ethos we don't talk about. As a small farmer, I'm kind of like, I'm a small farmer married to a historian. And so I'm like, look, I'm glad you guys think that we're perfect, but you need to know some things.
Wow, this is like, it's a fascinating and like eye-opening conversation, you know? So, no, I mean, thank you for sharing.